Welcome to SoCal Trading Team. Just in case we had to start all over again, we're talking about buying versus renting, and we're talking about the pros and then the cons of buying versus renting. Because a lot of people are asking me, should I buy a property or should I rent a property? So there are pros and cons to both, and I just want to briefly talk about just some of the pros and then some of the cons of buying versus renting. So first, we're going to talk about buying. Some of the pros of buying are that number one, you own it, right? It's yours, so no one can take it away from you. No one can tell you to get out, and you're building equity in that property. And at some point in your life, when you decide to sell that property that facility hopefully will pay for, then you could build, you have a nice amount of profit that you can gain from that property. Your mortgage get paid. The second thing is your mortgage gets paid every single month because of the business. The business takes care of that mortgage every single month because you are in turn renting the home to your business. You also, another pro of buying is that the owner can't, no one can kick you out of your property because it's your property. The owner can't change their mind and say, hey, I need my property back. Or, you know what, I want to sell the home and you have to give me this much money to buy the home. So those are some of the pros of buying a house. Some of the cons of buying the house is that sometimes you have neighbors that they don't want a residential facility in that area, and they'll typically give you a hard time depending on the area. So I consider that a con because it can be annoying if you're going back and forth with your neighbors. Another one of the cons is that everything in the house that breaks, whether it's major or minor, you're responsible for it. So the plumbing, the heating, the air, the roof, any major repairs, you're responsible for them because it is your home. Another con to it is that you have to come up with a larger down payment. Typically, if it's not a owner occupied home, meaning it's a business, which it is, you have your down payment is higher, so you probably have to come up with at least 20% in order to purchase the home. And if you're already have barriers to a business because you already have to have startup funds, that down payment can impact you big. And then also your monthly payment for your mortgage is typically going to be higher, especially if you're buying a house now. When you buy a house now, the prices are way higher than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So your mortgage payment is going to be higher uh, for you as well. So those are some of the pros and the cons for buying. Now let's talk about renting. Some of the pros. Some of the pros of renting are that typically you'll have lower rent. The only reason you'll have lower rent is because the owners of the homes have had the home so long already, and they're probably almost paid for, and or they bought them 5, 10, 15 years ago, so they don't need to necessarily have a high amount of mortgage. So your rent is lower, your move-in cost is lower. You're not going to put down 20% typically to move in a home. You'll probably put down maybe first and last, some places just first. So that cost is going to be lower as well. And not only that, with renting, another benefit to renting is that the area, you can choose the area where there is a need for residential facilities, opposed to with buying, you actually can do the same thing, but it may limit your spending power when you're buying because some of the areas you may not just be able to afford that area. While renting, you might be able to rent in the same area that you couldn't purchase a home in order to develop your business. So that's what I mean by that. Some of the cons of renting is that the owner can decide they want their home back. They can give you notice and you have to end up going to locate another facility. So that's one of the cons. Another thing is that the owner may decide they want to sell the property. They may give you first choice on whether or not you want to buy the property, but that property is probably going to be the same amount you would have spent trying to buy in that area. So that is another con for it. Or the last con for it is that, and I've seen this happen, the owner, a lot of this is geared towards owner. That's why I put owner. The owner is not paying the mortgage. And so you're paying the owner the mortgage, and they're not taking the money and paying the mortgage. So they're behind on the mortgage, and they may potentially lose the property that you are renting. You don't see that a lot, but I have seen it before. So I just wanted to do a brief video on buying versus renting. It's pretty straightforward. If I have a choice of the matter, my opinion is I would buy the property, because ultimately you would own the property. And at the end of the day, it's an investment for you that a business is paying for, and you know the money is going to be good when you're buying. When you're renting, you'll never own the home. You're helping another person pay off their home. So you guys kind of get the difference between the two. So that's all I wanted to talk about in buying versus renting for this video.